Good morning, dear students. This is Samiullah Khan, Senior Grade Lecturer from Government Giridhar Ram Narayan Institute of Commercial Practice, SJP Campus, Bangalore. In this session, I will explain the concept of the rights and powers of the company secretary. This session is conducting with an object to acquire the knowledge of company law and secretarial practice. Secondly, to acquire the knowledge and understand the rights and powers of the company secretary. Comes to the concept of rights and powers of the company secretary. Now, the company secretary enjoys the different rights. The Companies Act does not confer any special powers on secretary. Therefore, the secretary has to act in accordance with orders of board of directors and cannot do anything without express authority from board of directors. However, as an employee and as an officer of the company, he drives the following powers. The following powers are as follows. The first one, supervision and control. Since the company secretary is the head of secretarial department, he has the right to supervise and control the activities of the department. As a head of the office, a company secretary has a right to supervise, direct, and organize all office activities of subordinate officers. Next, signing the documents. Secretary, being the principal officer of the company, the company secretary is entitled to sign the documents, contracts, proceedings of the company meetings, files and documents on behalf of the company. Therefore, the company secretary has a signing authority. The next one, issue of testimonial. Being a principal officer of the company secretary can issue testimonials or any certificates in favor of any employee of the company. The next, preferential creditors. At the time of winding up of the company, liquidation of the company secretary can claim all his dues, such as his salary, as preferential creditors. Therefore, a company secretary can have a right to claim his salary at the time of winding up of the company as a preferential creditors. Next, claiming damage. A company secretary is entitled to receive notice as reasonable dismissal. In case of wrongful dismissal, he can claim his salary other than allowances and even commission. He can also take legal action against the company if any breach of contract. Next, exercising power. A company secretary is entrusted with some powers by the board of directors. So, he can freely exercise those powers in the company management. Nothing but the board of directors entrusts some powers to the company secretary. The company secretary can freely exercise all those powers in the day-to-day management of the affairs of the company. Next, attending a meeting. A company secretary has every right to attend the meeting. Therefore, the company secretary has a right to receive the notice of the meeting and to attend all general or board meetings. He has a right to present in the meeting of the shareholders and board of directors of the company. Next, right, allot the shares. A company secretary has a right to allot the shares to those applicants who applied for the shares on the directions of the board of directors. Ultimately, the director should have the power to delegate this right in the articles of the company, whether a company secretary can allot the shares or not. The next one, powers by implication. A company secretary has also the certain powers by implication. For an example, a secretary can serve notice under section 53. Before the removal or the dismissal of a company secretary has a right to receive the notice of the dismissal within a reasonable period of the time. Yes, these are the certain rights and the powers which can be enjoyed by a company secretary. We can highlight once again the rights and powers of the company secretary are as follows. He has a right of supervision and control of all the activities of the various departments, and he has a right to supervise and control the subordinates. Signing the documents, he has a right to sign all the documents of the company, contracts, files, and other proceedings of the company meetings. Then, issue of testimonials. He has a right to issue the testimonials or any certificates on behalf of the company. Next, preferential creditors. Right to claim his remuneration at the time of winding up of the company as a preferential creditors. Now the next right is claiming the damages. He has a right to claim the damages and the compensations for the wrongful dismissal. Next, exercising power. Now there are the certain powers which can be entrusted by the board of directors on secretary. A company secretary can freely exercise those powers in the management of the company, day-to-day affairs of the company. Attending the meeting. He has a right to attend the meeting of any kind, any types, whether the meeting is a annual general meeting, extraordinary general body meeting, board of directors meeting, creditors meeting, shareholders meeting, etc. In all the meetings, a company secretary has a right to attend. The next, allot the shares. If the board of directors permits in the article of association of a company, then in that situation, a company secretary has a right to allot the shares to the applicant who are applied for the shares. And the last one is a powers by implication. A secretary has certain powers by implication. For an example, a secretary can serve notice under section 53. As these all are the certain rights and powers of the company secretary. Now comes the next one, powers with the consent of the board of directors. A company secretary can exercise the following powers with the consent or approval of the board of directors. The first one, to call the board meetings. If the board of directors approves in the articles of association of a company, then a secretary can enjoy the power to call the board of directors meeting. But before the calling of the board of director meetings, he can consent the board of directors and the chairman of the meeting to fix the date of the meeting, the time of the meeting, the place of the meeting, etc. Therefore, now this power depends upon the consent of the board of directors. Next one, to call the company's meeting. Not only the board of directors meeting, now the other meeting, annual general body meeting, statutory meeting, now extraordinary meeting, creditors meeting, etc. The company secretary has a power to call the meeting, but with the prior approval of the board of directors, or by taking the consent of the board of director, he can call the meetings. Then to deliver the letter of allotment or share certificates. Company secretary no doubt can send the letter of allotment, letter of regret, share certificate, share warrants on behalf of the company. But this power can be depends upon the consent of the board of directors. Before sending the letter of allotment, before sending the letter of regret, before sending the share certificate or share warrants, a company secretary has to obtain the permission or a consent of the board of directors. The next one, to make the call on shares or send the notice for the forfeiture of the shares. A company secretary can make a call on shares or send the notices for the forfeiture of the shares depends upon the prior permission or a consent of the board of directors of the company. Without the consent, he cannot make the call. Without the consent, he cannot issue the notice of the forfeiture of the shares of the company. Therefore, now the prior permission is required. The next one is to register the transfer of the shares. If a company secretary wants to register the transfer of the shares or the transmission of the shares, in both the cases, the prior or before permission of the board of directors is required. Now the company secretary cannot do the transfer or the transmission of the shares without the permission or the consent of the board of directors. Yes, these are all the certain powers which a company secretary can enjoy, but with the consent of the board of directors. If the board of directors gives the permission, then he can do all these activities. Then comes to the next and the last concept of this session is the restrictions on powers. No doubt a company secretary can enjoy the certain powers, certain rights. Similarly, there are certain restrictions on the powers of a company secretary. Those are as follows. First one, to enter into a contract. A company secretary cannot enter into a contract with the others without the permission of the board of directors. Therefore, the company secretary cannot enter into a contract with any third parties without the consent of the board of directors. The board of directors can enter into a contract. These contracts can be executed by the company secretary. These contracts should be regulated by a company secretary. The company secretary should see that all these contracts should follow the rules and regulations of the act. That is the first one. Next, to borrow the money. A company secretary does not have any power to borrow the money on behalf of the company. He cannot take the loans and advances on behalf of the company. The board of directors enjoy the power to borrow the money on behalf of the company. Therefore, a secretary does not enjoy the power of borrowing the money, taking of the loans and advances on behalf of the company. The next one, to file a legal case. A company secretary does not file a legal case on behalf of the company in case of any legal disputes arises. Therefore, a company secretary does not have a power to file a legal suit on others. The next, to make any representations on behalf of the company. A company secretary cannot represent on behalf of the company, but a board of directors have a power to represent on behalf of the company. The next and the last one, to remove the name from the register. Whether the register is a register of member, register of officer of the company, register of charges, etc. In all these registers, the company secretary does not have any power to remove the names or to remove any details. A board of directors consent permission is required for making any changes in the registers. Yes, these are all the certain powers on that the secretary does not have all such powers that we referred as a restrictions on the powers of a company secretary. Yes, in this session we have discussed the concept of the powers of or rights of a company secretary. Yes, these are all are the rights and the powers which is enjoyed by a company secretary. Then powers enjoyed by a company secretary with the prior or permission, consent of the board of directors. Then last one, restrictions on the powers. I hope you understand this concept. Now moves to the next concept of this session is a multiple choice questions. Now the multiple choice questions include the following. The first one, a company secretary has to act in accordance with the orders of the board of directors and cannot do anything without or implied authority from the board of directors. The options is, are you agree with this or disagree with this? Yes, what is the answer? Yes, it is A, agree. The next, the company secretary has a preferential rights to get his salary at the time of option A, winding up of the company, option B, liquidation of the company, option C, both A and B, Option D, none of the above. Yes, what is the answer? The answer is the C. That is the both A and B at the time of winding up or the liquidation, both one and the same. Now in this stage, a company secretary has a right to receive his salary as a preferential creditors. Which one of the following is not the right of a company secretary? Option A, right to get remuneration. Option B, right to sign on the important documents. Option C, right to control the board of directors. Option D, right to represent the company. Yes, what is the answer, dear student? Yes, the answer is option C. Right to control the board of directors. A company secretary does not enjoy the right to control the board of directors. But board of directors appoints the company secretary, therefore the board of directors can control the company secretary. Comes to the next question. Company secretary has a right to act and perform as a principal officer of a company. The option A, agree. Option B, disagree. Yes, what is the answer, dear students? The answer is option A, agree. Because the company secretary is a principal officer. Company secretary is an executive officer of the company. That is the option A, agree. Now comes to the next one. A company secretary has a right to, option A, sign on all the important documents of the company. Option B, to make all the correspondence on behalf of the company. Option C, control the office of the company. Option D, all of this. What is the answer, dear student? Yes, the option D, all of this is the right answer. The company secretary has a right to sign, right to make correspondence, right to control the office. The option D, all of this is the right answer. Comes to the next question. A company secretary has a special power. He can serve the notice to the subordinates of the company according to Companies Act. The option A, agree. Option B, disagree. Yes, what is the answer? Yes, the answer is option A, agree. Now he can serve the notice to the subordinates of the company. Option A, agree, is the right answer. Comes to the next question. A company secretary has a right to conduct a statutory meeting. Option B, annual general meeting. Option C, both A and B. Option D, none of this. What is the answer, my dear student? Yes, option C is the right answer. That is both A and B. Then comes to the next one. Company secretary has the power to use common seal of the company. The option A, true. Option B, false. What is the answer? The answer is option A, true. Comes to the next question. Company secretary has the right to submit relevant documents to the company registrar whenever required. The option A, true. Option B, false. What is the answer? The answer is option A, true. That is, a company secretary has a right to submit all the documents whenever required by the registrar of the company. Next question. Company secretary has the power to print and name and address of the company in outside of the office and place of the business of the company. Are you agree or disagree, or the two options? What is the answer? The option A, agree. The company secretary has a power or a right to print the name and address outside the office and the places of the business of the company. As these are all the some multiple choice questions are there. Now I hope you understand these questions and this session. Then session outcome is, after this session the student will come to know what are the rights and powers of the company secretary, to analyze and apply the provisions of the company law regarding the powers of a company secretary. Now that's all, my dear students. Now these are all the certain books of references. Now I hope you understand the session. We will come with the next sessions. Till that, goodbye. Thank you very much.